Welcome, class, to Recipe Review 101, where we take a recipe, we go over it, give you some ideas about what you're going to experience when trying this recipe and how the recipe might turn out, what to expect when you make it. Today we're going to be talking about sheet pan chicken waffles from the October 2018 issue of Food Network magazine. So grab yourself a pen, paper, and a hunger for learning, because I'm Professor Kitchen and class is in session. Welcome back, class. Today we're going to be discussing sheet pan chicken and waffles. Now, if you've never had chicken and waffles, it is a southern delicacy, I guess you call it. And it's a weird thing. First time I heard about it, I was like, chicken and waffles, one's like for supper and the other one's for breakfast. But they actually work really well together. The sweetness of the waffles and the crunchy and savory of the fried chicken just work so well together. And today we're going to be just going over Food Network magazine in their 2018 October edition, their version of sheet pan chicken and waffles, and see how they're going to do it. It says it's going to take about 45 minutes to actually prepare, and the total time is about 1 hour and 10 minutes from start to finish. And it's going to serve about 6 people. Here's what you're going to need. Cooking spray, 4 skinless boneless chicken breasts, 6 to 8 ounces each, cut on an angle into thirds. A half a cup of sour cream, half a teaspoon garlic powder, 1/4 teaspoon cayenne pepper, finely grated zest of 1 lemon, kosher salt and freshly ground black pepper, 5 cups of cornflakes, finely crushed, 2 tablespoons extra virgin olive oil, 2 tablespoons chopped fresh thyme, 6 tablespoons unsalted butter at room temperature, 12 frozen home-style waffles, and maple syrup for serving. Now, obviously, first thing we're going to notice just looking at everything, all your ingredients, is that they're trying to make this easy as possible for you using things like your frozen waffles. You don't have to, they're saying don't make waffles, just go out and buy you some waffles. And instead of using a standard southern fried chicken style crust on the chicken, we're using cornflakes, which is something I've seen before. If you haven't seen it, it's quite interesting. It gives a totally different, gives a little bit different flavor component to it, and definitely different ways of being crunchy. Number 1, position a rack in the upper third of the oven and preheat to 450 degrees. Coat a rimmed baking sheet with cooking spray. Toss the chicken pieces with the sour cream, garlic powder, cayenne, half the lemon zest, 1/4 teaspoon salt, and a few grinds of black pepper in a large bowl to coat, and then set it aside. Okay. So what they're doing here is they're going ahead and seasoning up the chicken breast before you start in anything else, and while your oven's getting hot. Smart way of doing it. Make sure you wash your hands after you touch that chicken too, because you can cross-contaminate like crazy and you don't want anybody getting sick. Number 2, put the cornflakes in a shallow dish and stir in the olive oil, 1 tablespoon of thyme, and a pinch each of salt and black pepper. Coat the chicken in the cornflake mixture, pressing to adhere. Okay, so what you're going to do when you do this, you're just going to take your chicken and put it in the cornbread and kind of flip it over, cornflakes. Put it in the cornflakes and then kind of flip it over and press into it just to make sure that they stick, because the cornflakes are shaped weird, and so they're not going to stick flat to it. So you might have to press on a little bit to make sure they stick. Then it says place on the prepared pan and lightly coat with more cooking spray. That means you're spraying the actual chicken itself with the cooking spray. It says bake until lightly browned on top, about 15 minutes. Okay, so instead of having everything go into the oven at once, first thing they're doing is they're throwing the chicken in the oven and baking it. Got it. 15 minutes at 450. Number 3, meanwhile, mix the butter with the remaining lemon zest and 1 tablespoon of thyme in a medium bowl. Season with salt and black pepper and set aside. That's interesting. Let's see what we're going to do with that. Number 4, remove the baking sheet from the oven and move the chicken to one side. So you got the chicken spread out on the baking sheet, so it have plenty of room for the air to move around it. Now you're going to scoot them all to one side. I assume that the chicken is not going to be done in 15 minutes, even at 450 degrees, especially if you have thicker chicken breast. Arrange the waffles in 2 rows on the other side of the pan, overlapping them. Bake, flipping and rotating the waffles halfway through until a thermometer inserted into the thickest part of the chicken registers 165 degrees and the waffles are toasted and hot. It's going to take about 10 to 15 minutes. All right, so you've taken your chicken out of the oven and you scoot them over to one side. The majority of the cooking on the chicken should be done, at least on the outside. Now we're trying to get it all the way through the inside. Lay out your waffles in an overlapping pattern, kind of like roof shingles, and throw it back in the oven for about another 10 or 15 minutes, making sure to flip it halfway through. So set your timer for 5 to 7 minutes. I'd go with 5. After 5 minutes are done, you're going to flip all the waffles. You might want to flip the chicken too, and put it back in the oven for another 5 minutes. And then check the temperature of your thickest chicken breast to see if it's up to 165 degrees is what they recommend. Yes. If it's not done, put them back in the oven. You might want to flip the waffles one more time. Check the underside to make sure they're not getting soggy. If they are, you're going to want to flip them again, but put them back in the oven for about another 5 minutes or so to get the chicken done. Number 5, spread the lemon thyme butter evenly over the waffles. Serve the chicken and waffles with maple syrup. So really interesting what they're doing here with the lemon and thyme butter, in my opinion, because butter is something you typically put on waffles, but not lemon and thyme. You're really giving it another level of savory to go with your chicken to contrast with the sweet maple syrup. And the way you eat chicken and waffles, if you don't know, is you actually take the chicken breast and the waffle at the same time on your plate. And most people here in the South, they take and they stack the chicken on top of the waffle. And then you cut through and you make sure you get both chicken and waffle and syrup and butter and everything else in each bite. It's almost like a casserole in the fact you're eating everything at once. It sounds weird, but trust me, it is so good. And I just think this sounds like a really good recipe. I think I might make it myself. If you try it, let me know how it turns out for you in the description box below. If you have any more suggestions on recipes you'd like me to go over, please let me know in the description box as well. I thank you all for coming to class today. Hope you all have a great week. God bless. Class dismissed.